Hi, everybody. My name is Justin McElroy. Welcome to the panel.
And my name is Travis McElroy, and I also welcome you to the panel.
First off, thank you to GDEX for having us here.
Why are we doing like NPR? Can we raise the energy a little?
I do. Yeah, it's a good point. I do feel like I'm not giving them much. It's because it's in the new shirt. I haven't broken it in yet.
I understand. This jacket, I'm still stretched out.
Yeah,
the elbows.
so restrictive.
Hi, everybody. How about that? Whoa! Match my energy.
It's because we didn't have music.
Oh, yeah.
You don't realize what a crutch that is.
Okay, you want me to pull it up on Spotify?
Just something different.
Okay.
Just pick up a theme song for us, and then no.
Some Billy Joel, maybe.
So we are.
Does anyone in here not know who we are? You can raise a hand.
That is the most buck wild question you could ever ask. That's like beyond egomaniacal. You realize that, right?
That actually was the passive.
Anybody here not know who I am?
That was the passive version of, do you know who I am? So we
The one that leaves him a little door on the way out. You're excused.
So,
I'm gonna set a timer here.
Okay, we host a lot of podcasts. I think I do 7 or 8.
I do 8 or 9.
Yeah, so
just one more than whatever you do.
And I think amongst our like family collective, I think there's about 100 or so podcasts. Yeah. We've been doing it now since 2009 is when you started the JPEG. Right?
Okay, that sounds about right. I feel like 2008 is when I started recording the podcast, so I've been doing it since 2008. I've been in the game. But
so yeah, we've been doing it for almost a decade now, and a lot of experience. We've seen it. I was about to say we've seen podcasts come and go, but I hope that's not true.
Yeah. So the way we wanted to kind of structure this was we have been successful in podcasting, but we have. What's the cursing policy? Is it like?
Yeah, cool. I'm getting a thumbs up in the back.
Okay, thumbs up for profanity does not work like that. Give me like, okay, everybody close your eyes and put your heads down for 1 second. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. Everybody close your eyes and put your heads down. Heads down, close your eyes. If you have a problem with profanity, please raise your hand.
Okay. Somebody just flipped us off. I do like that.
That's a fun joke.
We're solid. All right.
So we fucked up a lot. And that's all the cursing. I feel like that was over the line. Even that.
No, it felt weird.
It felt weird.
We fudged up quite a bit. Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It tastes worse in the mouth.
So yeah, and the thing is like because I think when we started, podcasts were not as much of a household concept, like household name as they are now. And I think that people were a little bit more forgiving. And for whatever reason, we have been lucky enough that our audience has been very forgiving as we have learned from our fuck ups. And I think now in 2017, everyone is kind of ready for shows, I think, to roll out, ready to go. And so we wanted to share with you some of our fuck ups so that if you ever want to start a podcast, or if you're doing a podcast now, you won't have to experience the same fuck uppery.
So we're gonna walk you through just sort of like the whole life of a podcast and the things that you will do along the way. Feel free to take notes in your phone. This is all really good stuff. We're kind of experts.
It's going to be great.
You don't want this to go in one ear and out the other. Don't be like us. And the first section we're going to come to is big picture. Let's start with a concept of our podcast. There should be a slide here. Hold on.
Concept.
Imagine that says big picture. We didn't make slides, but just imagine it says big picture.
So first, 2 slides. That's our
first
first
slides, but in the bare minimum of effort. Imagine we have slides. Okay, so you want a concept. This is something we fucked up. Our show is not easy to describe briefly. It is only in the loosest sense of the word even has a concept behind it. It's 3 dullards trying to, et cetera, et cetera.
There's the best example of this we can give is the opposite. Our friends Tim and Guy do a podcast called The Worst Idea of All Time, where they watch the same bad movie every week for 52 weeks. That is a 1-sentence description of a podcast that makes somebody go, wait, what?
It was even easier in the first season of the show. It was They are watching the movie Grown Ups 2 every week for 52 weeks. Podcast. The
Right.
end. And this is the point I'm making. When we started, there was a lot fewer podcasts. So the concept of your show needs to be a sentence that you can say to people, this is what the show is. And it needs to be on your iTunes page. This is what the show is. This is the one sentence, because you have to have what marketing types call a key differentiator. And you got to have it fast.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la.
And I also think along with that is because there's so many podcasts out there nowadays, what you're not going to get is a groundbreaking revolutionary. That should not be your goal in the concept, because while those still exist and shows will come out where you're like, that's genius. How has no one thought of that before? If you sit and try to come up with that, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. I think what you need to do, this is what I've always advised people, pick a topic you already like talking about, and pick someone that you already like talking to about it, and then just record that. Mm-hmm. Because that way, even if no one ever listens, you still have fun doing it. And because I think if you set out and say, I'm going to start a podcast and my goal is to be wildly successful, then I think you're setting yourself up for frustration.
Which kind of goes into the questions you should be asking yourself at this point. Who is this show for? Am I making like a mainstream marketable show that I think has a potential to grow a big audience? Or am I making a show because I feel like it and I think it would be fun? And if you're doing the latter, there's no problem with that. I think that's great. It's fun to make a podcast. Make a podcast, throw it up, have some fun. Who cares? Like, it's a great excuse. When we started, it was just to have fun because we needed an excuse to talk to each other because they had moved away. So we just put it up for fun. It was fun. I don't know. But you can relieve a lot of the pressure on, if you have two friends and you're three people who just want to talk about movies and music and share your opinions of it, you can totally do that. Like, if your goal is to have a marketable product that you can get a bunch of people to listen to and that a bunch of people get excited about, there's a lot of that. You're going to have some pretty good opinions about movies and pop culture. They're going to have to be the hottest takes imaginable.
Yeah, and the problem with that, too, is like, for example, Bad Movie Podcast is like a very popular format. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's like, I listen to multiple Bad Movie podcasts, and like, it's not like, well, there's already 10 of them, and that's the cap. Like, if it's good, people will listen to it. And if you have fun doing it, that's what matters.
I would also doubly extend this to, like, if you are not a straight white dude, straight white cis dude, just to hear your opinions on things like that is a viewpoint that is not expressed enough and is not out there enough. So like, that is enough, I think, of a reason to get your voice out there and to do the show that you want to do. And that's the most important thing. If it sounds miserable to you, don't do it. You won't like doing that. Call it something memorable. You need a name for it. Here are some good names for podcasts.
Let me suggest not something that sounds like you're mumbling, like my brother and me.
Maybe something that has anything like an acronym that would be in any way, or maybe something that's not a parody of a Nick's show, so you can't trademark it.
But no, it is, because here's what you want. You want something that is both indicative of what the show is, but also what the show is going to feel like.
Yeah.
So, like, if it's a funny show, don't give it a super serious title. If it's a show about movies, you probably need something cinematic sounding in the title. You want somebody to be able to look at the title alone and say, I think I might be interested in that.
I think the two different ends of the spectrum here. One that I think is a good name is Sawbones, because it's evocative, and we're really happy to get that and land on that because it's evocative of what it's about, and it is also has the same spirit of it, but it's short, easy to remember, easy to get the Twitter handle, easy to make a hashtag of, that kind of stuff that actually matters in 2017. Another one is Denzel Washington is the greatest actor of all time, period. Like, that's great. That's the entire show. It's so memorable. It's so funny. It tells you exactly what it is, but it's gotta stand out. And it's gotta tell you about what the thing is.
And I think along those same lines, as far as title, I also think that your podcast art is going to do that too.
Sure.
You want something, if somebody's scrolling through and they're going to see like a little 1-inch square of it somewhere, what does it tell them?
And can they read the words at that
Yeah.
size? That's something a lot of people don't think about. Imagine it on the iTunes page, and they should be able to read the.
Yeah, you don't. It's not. You got 1 inch square. It's not, if that. It's not something that you want to cram a whole bunch of imagery into because it's just going to look busy. Honestly, most of the time, words that pop on a background is going to do you more than any kind of intricate drawing.
So you want to record a podcast? Next up, you got to record it.
Yeah.
That's the hard part about it. You got to have microphones in front of your face to record it. And this, say, how much you spend on equipment does not matter.
Correct.
Quality does matter. And that can seem paradoxical, but there are lots of ways to engineer quality that do not require expending money. So the first thing that you want to decide, do you want to use a USB microphone or do you want to do a mixer? A USB microphone is easy. You just plug it in the computer and go. You can do that for $50 or less and get a good product. You can probably find a blue snowball on eBay for $50. Do a Google search. Find out, best USB mics under $50.
You can also do, there's a lot of YouTube videos where they actually do side-by-side comparisons of different microphones. It's also good for ASMR, so.
Perfect. The other thing you can do is get a USB mixer, which there's one called Euphoria. I think Behringer makes. It's very good. It's like $50, but you find this, and it's the advantage of this is, one, you're going to pay a little bit more than just the standalone microphone, but you get the flexibility of you can plug whatever mic you want into it. It gives you discrete control over the two. And if you're recording with more than 2 people in a room, or if you're recording with more than 1 person in a room, you really do need 2 mics.
Yeah.
So you can get, but again, this is cheap. This is not expensive stuff. It's pretty affordable.
I mean, if you have $200, I think you can do a whole
And you
setup.
can borrow, cheat, and steal your way to less than that. I think. Like you can. Check the bay.
And let me also say this: as far as the getting started goes and the equipment goes, sit down and record something with the microphone, and listen to it, and then kind of gauge from there. Because also, what you will find is a lot of people have preferences. It's like cars, or it's like anything. People have preferences that you can't tell the difference, but they can.
Right.
And so, like, I own a lot of different microphones that I use for different things that will sound exactly the same to 99.9% of people. But to me, I sit there and go, but this one's better than this one, because I'm insane. But
the only thing I would push back against in terms of mics is headset mics. I feel like I've yet to hear one that actually sounds good, and you're going to pay more because of the integrated headphones. Speaking of headphones, by the way, this is another biggie, something we screwed up constantly. We screwed all this up. We started, my brother and me, using a Rock Band microphone that we got included with the hit video game Rock Band. It was free. It was a free micro. We didn't even spend any money on it. It was free. So we screwed this up pretty bad. Headphones, okay? You want to use headphones that are closed. What do I mean by that? There's you got the speaker coming in this way, the noise is coming out here, and on the other end, if it's a solid surface, that's what you want, because otherwise you're going to get what we call leak, where the noise from your headphones is going to bleed into your microphone, and you're going to hear the other people talking on the track, and it's miserable. Do you have to pay for expensive closed headphones? No, you can get them for $20. Or another great option that I don't particularly like, but I think is a good fix, is earbuds, because you're never going to get leak from earbuds. They're in your ears, so that's not going to be an issue. So, but that's something to be aware of. If you're listening for it, that is what's causing it. You need closed headphones or earbuds.
And with that too, you also need to keep that turned down, not turned all the way up, because like if it's blasting, then you're going to pick it up.
Yep. Record in the right place. There are a lot of people think that smaller rooms are better. That's not necessarily true. A smaller room when you're recording is going to give a lot more reflective surface before the sound waves dissipate. So you're actually going to get more reflection. The worst place you could possibly record is like in your shower, right? Because it's like a small room, completely reflective. The more important thing is what the walls are what is in the space. A room with a lot of furniture is good. A room with a lot of books is great. If you have a place with like bookshelves lining the wall, that's great too. Also think about which way your sound is going. If you can talk into the books, that's great.
In a pinch, the best thing to do, open your closet. if it's stuff with clothes, right? And set up your microphone so you're talking into the closet.
Talk into your clothes.
Yeah.
Is what we're saying. You
Yeah.
just look at your clothes and talk into them.
Yeah, that would actually be an interesting podcast of like, hello, shirt. Today I'm going to talk about blue shirt.
I'm joined by Tasteful Dickie today. Okay, here's something else we fucked up. Get good music, but don't steal it from ABBA.
Now, let's be clear. We never like got in trouble.
Yeah.
But we could have.
Well, we could have, and it would be bad. And like honestly, y'all, those apps are still up. So I do live in fear of the day that ABBA comes to claim what's theirs.
But I also I think to that point, and this is kind of a much bigger point to that, but like be ready to adapt, be ready to change, because I also think that I have known a lot of podcasters who have said things like, yeah, I know people don't like, and it's gonna be funny, I'm the one saying this, but I know that parts of my audience don't like this part of the show, but I'm gonna keep doing it. But they mean it sincerely. Not a joke, where I also know Sad Libs is bad. But like where they're ready for part of their audience to dislike a half of the show. And I think that that's fine if you're just doing it for a fun show that you like to do. But if you're looking for like a professional kind of thing, rolling with changes and adapting things like, you know what, I think the show, when we started the show, it was like this and the music was the right choice for it. And now we've kind of shifted tone and I think we need different sounding music. Change the music. Be ready to change
It's
as
good,
the show
and it's
changes.
good to change things to keep yourself interested too. If it feels stale to you, then it'll feel stale to the people listening. Good resources for this: search for Creative Commons is one option. I think a better option is find a friend who makes music and give a little bit of cash to a local artist. That's always a nice approach to take.
That's an excellent point for both music and podcast art.
Yep.
Pay people to do it. Don't ask people to do it for free. And you know, talk to people, offer to pay them what you can afford up front. Say this is what my budget for this project is. But don't ever expect anyone to do work for free, because that is a shitty thing to do.
Yeah. Our Sawbones art was made by a friend of ours named Michael Maney. The still buffering art was City Sister Taylor made that. Our friend Justin Russo, who's a graphic designer who we'd known for a long time, did Mabim Bam. I think we gave him like $50, and now we email him every 2 weeks, like, can we get a different version of this, but with the purple switched out with the red, because
we'll give you more money.
But we won't give him more money because we already paid him. Sorry, idiot. Nice try.
Oh, that is another thing too. When you get your art, ask them as well as the image for the different components of the image, so that they can be reworked for banners and different things like that.
Yep. Here's one we didn't do very good. Try editing it.
Yeah. And guys, so important. This is a thing that like I stress so hard to anyone who's like scared of sitting down and actually recording their first episode. It's not live. It doesn't go out live.
Yeah.
So you could record a whole hour and be like, garbage, and erase it. Like, that's fine. Or you could sit down and like say, I don't know how this is going to go. And you record the first hour and it's great. Cool.
Okay.
But you can edit the shit out of anything.
You can edit anything out. Here's a fun fix. I discovered this way too late. It gives you the dog clickers. You click so the dog doesn't do bad stuff like pee on the carpet. We had a no can growing up, but apparently dog clicker is the way to go.
Well, the clicker is actually for rewarding the dog.
What? The dog loves it?
Yeah, so you call
click that bad boy.
You do what's called charging the clicker, and you give a treat as you click, give a treat as you click. And then they start to establish the click. Hi, everybody. You start to do the click is established as like, hey, good job.
So it works the inverse for podcasting, though. I have one hanging off my mic, and when we screw up, which we do often, I lift up the mic, and I click it 5 times. You can see it really easily in the waveform. So you can, yeah. And also, it's good for the boys. They're like, that sucks. We did a bad job.
Not only that, but that's another thing, too. You and your host, co-host, or if it's just you, keep that in mind with editing of you can edit, right? So keep that in mind. And if you say something that you're like, hold on, I want to do that again, do that in the thing. Don't feel like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to cut it out later. So say like, hey, stop real quick. I'm going to take that back because I said, blue when I meant to say yellow or whatever. Run back and do it.
But have some sort of system. I like the clicker we used to write down time codes. Like, remember, at 50 minutes in, you said something super racist, so make sure to take it out. that is not ever the case. Okay, so you were in record a show, right? You sit down with your person, whoever your person is, or maybe you're by yourself. There's a lot of great solo podcasts. One of these days I'd like to do one, but you know Sleep With Me? You know, I heard Sleep With Me? My friend Scooter does it. It's just a show that's supposed to put you to sleep. And that's wild. I don't know how does he keep people up until his MeUndies ads? This is my question. But you got your folks, you got your microphones that you didn't pay too much for. Here are some things to keep in mind as you're sitting down to record. One, I'm going to take this a little bit out of order, but signposting, right? The important thing, I don't think it's important to write down every word you're going to say. In fact, I think you probably shouldn't, unless that's your thing. If you're Spalding Gray, like maybe that's your jam. But I think the more important thing, though, is to have a list of things that you know you can jump to. I think of them as vines, right? If we're doing a bit and I see that the energy's starting to wane and it's starting to run out, then I know the next vine is a question or Griffin is looking at a Yahoo. Like, I know the next vine. So if I see feel the conversation flagging, I know what the next thing is. I know where we're going after this. And that's what you need. With Sawbone, Sydney has the research in front of her, so she knows as things are starting to wind down or I finish bloviating some nonsense, she knows the next thing she's going to say. That's what you don't want, is that sense of like, well, it got quiet in here.
And that's also good for the audience because it starts to build for them. I think a lot of you might have an amazing show that everybody just loves right off the bat, but I also think part of it is familiarity. It's like when you listen to a show, you start to feel like, oh, they're going into this segment. I love this segment. Oh, I love when they do jokes about this. And it might be something as specific as like a specific segment, or it might be like on the Flophouse, a bad movie podcast on Max Fun, like they'll go off on this weird tangent story. Elliot will start like well, that reminds me, and he'll make something up about like Alan Ruck. And it's different every time. It's a different story every time, but it is a tangent. And it's like, I love their tangents. And that kind of familiarity for me is what makes me love the show. So I would also say to that point, another thing I would stress, don't feel the need to edit out or censor personality. Because that is what's making the show different from a show of the same topic. So it might be like, for example, you could look at the Flophouse and say, you guys are going off on tangents and it's distracting from talking about the movie. We need to focus on the movie. Yeah, but everybody talks about the movie. What makes the show different is the tangents. That's the personality.
That is an interesting point, Trev, that I want to leapfrog off because I want to say something that will seem to contradict that, but is not actually. And that is, don't assume familiarity. By that, I mean those tangents and things, I think, it is important that you have established a rapport with the audience before you go too far down that path, and they trust you and who you are. And the important thing about a tangent like that is to provide the context to make it an entertaining story in and of itself. When I say don't assume familiarity, what I mean is don't assume that the person listened to your last episode, because maybe they didn't. And that's why we try really hard on Bim Bam to avoid like in-jokes, like things that I bristle actually when people talk about in-jokes we have, because we don't really I don't want anything to only be funny if you listened to it 2 years ago. Like, I want it to make sense in the moment. There's things that we return to because we're obsessed with them, but not necessarily, not like a reference to their old stuff.
It's also why we do an intro on every episode. We've done 375, and we still started off telling you our names and who we are in relationship to each other, because it's that assumption of, if this is your first episode, we're not just going to start, especially since we all sound exactly the same.
Yeah, that's key. Speaking of introductions, while it's good to introduce yourself and the show at the beginning of each episode, I would push against, and I see a lot of podcasts doing this, don't do an intro episode. Your first episode should not be, this is what the podcast is going to be about. Your first episode should be the podcast, because they probably won't, you would be really lucky, and they would be very generous to listen to more than one that does not actually represent the show, which is another reason to, for those at the beginning, make the show as short as it humanly can be. Make it as short as possible. My brother and me, if you go back and listen to the early episodes, were 35 to 40 minutes long, period, the end. And my logic for that is this. If someone listens to the entirety of an episode and they get to the end of it then they might listen to another one. If they don't finish the episode, they will never listen again.
Yeah.
So if you can get it done in 20 minutes, it might be over before they even realize it, and they'll think, I finished that. I must have liked it.
Yeah.
you totally trick them. It's great.
That's the thing, man. Have you ever sat down and there's just the TV's been on and you've accidentally watched like 8 episodes of like a TV show about forging metal? And it's like, what happened? Oh, it was just on. I just kept watching it. I will say the only reason I would suggest doing an intro of any kind is, and this is a little technical thing, if you post your RSS feed to iTunes, it can sometimes take like 2 weeks for it to get approved and up on iTunes. So if you're looking to do a big rollout, here's all my links, because that's the thing. Think about this. If you only get people's eyeballs once, and what you offer is something that doesn't let them subscribe to your show, you're missing an opportunity. So if it's just like a direct link to the episode, they might click it. And they might say like, oh, that was good. I enjoyed that. There's only the one. Okay. And then they promptly forget about it and they never come back and listen to your show again. If there's some way for them to click and subscribe, now you have them coming back. So I think trying to have all of your links ready to go on your launch day is the way to go.
Now, another way of handling this that I really like, and no one will ever do it, and I recommend it to everybody, and nobody ever listens to me. But do your show. Record your show. First off, that first episode, you should delete it. Trust me on this one. Take the first episode you did, drag it to a recycling bin, empty it into the sun. Trust me on this one.
This is no joke. Bunker Buddies, we recorded 5 episodes that we immediately deleted on our 6th episode because we didn't know what the show was yet. And so we did our like prep was recording like, that was close. Not there yet. And on the 6th episode, we're like, yeah, that's great. So that went out as our first episode.
It's wild to, if you really think about it, and people rarely think about podcasts this way, but it's wild to think you would record your podcast and the first time you do it, it would be good.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. What other medium is like that? None. None of them.
It's like putting your first rehearsal up on stage and charging tickets to it. You know, not a good way to go.
30 Rock wasn't good when it started. Parks and Recreation.
Took a whole like season and a half for Parks and Recreation
to get good. Your podcast isn't good right now. Delete it. Listen to me. Wait, no, you're posting it. Stop.
That no joke though. This is another great suggestion. If you have your episode and you're like, I think this is good. Cool. Pick 10 people whose opinions you trust and let them listen to it.
But not the first one. You deleted that already,
you deleted
remember?
That one.
You can't share it with
This is your
them.
streamlined second episode because it's quite possible they're like, that was good. It went a little long in this one section. Oh, okay, cool, because you thought that was super funny, but people who weren't in the room recording it didn't enjoy it as much as you. That's an important thing to know before you put it out.
But here's my life hack for this is once you get a few that you're happy with, put them up.
Yep.
Put them up on your hosting service. We use Libsyn. Anyone will do whatever. It doesn't matter. But put them up and then submit to iTunes and don't tell a soul about it. And once it's up on iTunes and there are multiple episodes to listen to, then you can start to tell people about it and ask people to share it and ask people to get it out there. And the reason is this. The way iTunes charts works is not by number of downloads. It's by the best way to think of it is heat tracking. So if something's getting a large number of new listens and new subscribers, then it's going to rank disproportionately high on the charts. So when you first launch a show, you go from like 0 to however many. Even if you're going from like a 0 to 1,000, a 0 to 100, whatever, it's a disproportionately high chance for you to gain some more eyeballs by gaming those charts. So you want that influx to come all at the same time. You don't want it to be spread out as people sort of gradually come in. And that's another reason to have multiple episodes available, because then if they can download 4, then that's 4 times as many all in this little chunk of time where we're trying to look impressive for the iTunes charts. So put them up first and then don't tell anybody about it. You would be shocked at how many people are like, hey, Justin, I like your podcast. I do a podcast I think you might like. Here's a link to our first episode. I'd love to hear your feedback. You do not want to hear my feedback on your first episode. You swore to me you deleted it. We promised each other, and here you are.
And that's also, here's the other thing is I think that also, if you expect that in your first, second, third, first 5, first 10, first 20 podcasts, you're going to achieve notoriety, I think that is an unreasonable expectation, because I don't think I enjoy any of the episodes we did before 101. I think the first 100 episodes were us finding our feet and growing an audience and getting people involved. And even then, it's only recently that I started to think like, okay, I think we're doing all right as far as like success goes. And so that's the thing, is like, it's a podcast growth is a slow growth game. It is a 2 friends tell 4 friends tell 8 friends kind of thing. It is not like, unless you've been in a movie or have a blue check mark next to your name, you are not going to start a podcast and get 20,000 downloads on your first day.
Only Anna Faris could do that when she steals your concept for a show
and does it better than you.
Does it better than you.
Funnier
with her
and
charming
more charming
friends. 2 more things quick before we move on to building an audience. Here's one that we screwed up. Don't be mean for no reason. Like, don't be mean to groups of people that you don't know just because you don't know any of them. Mm-hmm. Because some of them might listen to your show and then you're going to feel like a real shit king. Yeah. So maybe you should not be mean to anybody. If you can not find a way to be funny without being mean to people, you probably shouldn't do a podcast because you're not funny.
This is the thing that actually came out of that. So we made fun of furries because we didn't know shit about shit. And then some very, very nice furries were like, hey, let us tell you about our shit. And we said, oh, we're jerks. And so then I started doing this thing where my thought process, anytime I would start to say something, would be to think, imagine I'm sitting in front of that person, looking them in the eye, would I still say this? And the answer is no.
We got that idea from a little guy you might have heard of. His name is Jesus.
And so I really started working about, like, imagine this person is listening right now. Do I feel, is it a nice thing to say this thing?
Yeah.
And like that really started to shape like, oh yeah, because when we record, we're in 3 different states, alone in a room looking at a microphone. And it's very easy in that moment to lose sight of the fact that there is a real world out there where real people with real emotions and real ears are going to hear your words and be affected by them. And like, if you lose sight of that, it's so easy to slip into this like bull in a china shop kind of mentality of like making jokes.
That goes especially
and being a jerk.
That goes doubly true for podcasts, I think, because it's such an intimate thing, right? Like you're in the person's ears, like they're in your head, but pretty much. My friend Chris Plant calls them the friends in your ears. Like it's you are. There is completely just you and the person, and it feels like they're talking to you. And imagine that, but then they start saying whack shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's a total bummer. So don't do that.
And also to that point, I will say, I can say for us 3 personally, I'm not going to say this applies to every straight, cis, white dude. But for us, it went like triply careful, or, triply important to think about the things that you were saying, because there was so much gentle education that came from our audience, because it was stuff that like I'd never thought about before. I was 24, I think, when we started recording, and I lived in West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Ohio as a straight white, cis dude, and it just, I hadn't thought about other people and how the stuff that I took for granted affected them. And so be better than me and think about that ahead of time without having to have gentle people say, excuse me, that's not okay.
You're being a dumbass.
Yeah.
One last question on content. Decide whether or not you want to work clean. It's a choice. I do on some shows and I don't on others. It's not as hard as you would think. I thought it would be much harder to do a clean show, but it's not. But just make the
Sometimes
decision.
you do say like hell or piss, and you go,
oh man, I miss hell and piss so much. They're such good words.
I meant you have to decide if you have to cut that out or if that's okay.
Oh yeah, okay. I thought you were just like,
hell, the best one.
I miss hell. What a good word. But make that decision. The one thing I'll say, as the sign at my middle school used to say, nobody is offended by not using profanity.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is, like, for example, I think it would be weird if we did My Brother, Me, and Adventure Zone clean. But, like,
We've done it. We've done it at Candlelight.
Sort
Sort of.
But it would be also weird if Schmanners had a bunch of curse words in it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's more of like, what is the show? What fits the show? What makes the most sense?
With Sawbones, it was really cool, actually, because the unintended side effect is we started getting emails from, like, parents who listen with their 8-year-old kids. And it's like, that's so neat. And it wouldn't have happened if we had cursed on it. So just something to think about and commit to it, because you actually do have to select that in your interface. You have to tell iTunes if it's a clean show or an explicit show. There's one in the middle, which it seems weird there's a middle ground. It seems like it's either one or the other pretty much.
It's just like roulette. Like, will
I
there
don't
be? On like your 100th episode, you're just like, fuck.
Fuck. And anyway, he was guilty. That's the end of Serial, everybody. Wait, what? What? Record several episodes. Get good art. Timeliness of episodes. This is a good one to think about. If there's something going on that your show is uniquely positioned to discuss, that's a good opportunity to talk about it and to bring that conversation in. That's going to give people. It's a great hook, and it's a great way of making your show part of the conversation. We've had luck with Sawbones, which is something we came to late. Is like if there's a big fake medical trend in the news, then we'll do an episode about it. And that's both like, I think, a public service because it's educating people about something that is might be fake. Spoiler alert, it is. It's always.
Has there ever been an episode of Sawbones where in the end you're like, and it turns out totally works?
Yeah, which one? Vaccines.
Well, yeah.
Well, okay. Okay, yeah, I mean, okay.
Okay.
You know what I meant. But anyway, so speaking of that actually is something that I wanted to talk about that I skipped over here, but I wanted to.
Oh, wait, can I say one last thing of timeliness of
Yeah,
episodes?
please.
Also to that point, not just timeliness of topic, but consistency. So, like, for example, if you're starting to build an audience, right, and you put out an episode every, say, Tuesday, right, and then you miss 3 weeks, you're going to lose, because the thing is there's so much content out there for people to consume. And if you miss a chunk of time, they're going to sit there and go, well, I guess I better see what else is on to fill that time. And then you're going to lose. Think of it like a time slot, except it's a time slot not for a cable channel, but for every individual listener there is. And people only have so much time in the week, so they can only listen to so many shows. And if you miss like a month and think you're going to jump back in and get all of your audience back the same as when you stopped, you're going to have to rebuild that.
People don't realize it, but they build their lives around these shows. Like for me, any memory I have of taking the trash out on Wednesday nights is accompanied by the Giant Bombcast because I listen to it on Wednesdays. So if there's not there, if that show's not there on Wednesday, I'm going to drag the trash cans to the front yard in complete silence. Can you imagine? What could be worse than that? Also, the way it used to work, and it may not anymore, I don't know, but the way it used to work is if you go more than 3 weeks without a new episode, then iTunes unsubscribes the person from your podcast.
So don't do that.
So don't do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, so if you're going to miss a week, let people know. If you can do that ahead of time, that would be great, something along those lines. Or just tell people, like, I put this podcast up whenever I feel like it. And that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, you're lucky. That's how whatever happened to pizza at McDonald's is. It just comes when it comes.
Is that a show?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one guy calls McDonald's and asks them whatever happened to pizza. It's really good. And he asks if they remember it. He talks about how good it was, and they sometimes agree and sometimes disagree. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to touch on, and I just have two words here, and they are provide value, and it's something that I think is so important and yet gets lost so often. If you want to do a podcast or anything, honestly, this could extend to anything, but if you want to do a podcast, think about the value you provide. And that can seem very like business way of thinking about it, but I think it's useful to say, like, if you give me this, your most precious resource, your time, what do you get out of that? What am I providing? What's the value I'm providing? Like with Sawbones, I think it's educational. You learn something and you're entertained a little bit. If I carry my end of the bargain. Sydney's funnier than I am anyway.
And better in every way.
Okay, thanks, Trav. Come on. my brother and me, we're trying to provide like levity and maybe occasionally stumble onto decent advice, but we're
I would
trying
say
to
sincerity is
sincerity.
what no, that's not true.
No, that's not but that's not a value. That's a quality of what. This is what I'm saying. Like
Distraction is my brother. I mean.
distraction. There, that's fine. And Adventure Zone, it's a lot of those things combined. It's a narrative, but it's a worthwhile story. It's entertainment, whatever. But think about what you're providing the listener and what you're offering to them, because there's a lot of podcasts that I've heard where two people are talking into a microphone about something and then it ends. And I'm not sure why I was there for that. I didn't necessarily need to be there for that conversation. They should feel free to have that by themselves. And again, that's not a bad thing. If you want to do that, do it. But if you want to draw people to what you're doing, then you need to be able to provide value. You need to be able to give them something, and that it's an honor, I think, to be able to do that. But you need to figure out what it is you have to offer, because that's going to be the guiding principle of how you help the show grow and make the show become everything it could be.
I think that basically to sum up how I feel about that, like have a conversation, and I didn't need to be here for that. It is important, whether you are in 3 separate states or all in the same room or however you're recording, there is another person there, and it's the audience. And if you forget about them, they will forget about you. And so you have to remember that you are, even if you're just sitting on your couch, you are entertaining an audience. Because I think that there's a disconnect, once again, it's very easy to make, of sitting and recording, and in the future, other people will listen to it. But you have to imagine it's happening simultaneously, because they're in the room, they're watching and they're listening and they are taking it in. And so, for example, if you're sitting in the room and you're making each other laugh by making faces at each other, that's super funny for you guys in the room. But the people listening at home can't see that. They don't know what's going on. So if you don't bring them in on it, if you don't say like, well, that sound you just heard was him knocking over his drink, then they don't know what the sound was.
It's a very good reason, by the way, to not record on video. That's something else we fucked up, because we just made dumb faces at each other, and that's not good audio, folks. Like, think about it, really. Do we do questions?
Sure. How much more time do we have?
Is that cool? 5, 10 minutes? Okay, I saw your hand first.
Yes.
Come on down.
I think there's a mic there.
Yeah, there's a mic right in the center there.
If it's not,
we'll figure it out together.
Go for it.
Hey, what's your name? Hi, Grace.
Oh, cool. How'd I do? No, we don't have to talk about it now. Yeah, we stole from them.
Yeah. It's basically, I mean, bullet points. Like, is that the best way to describe it, Sidster?
She's over there. Yeah.
We basically have it's basically like.
And I actually think to that point, because this is something that it took us a little while to find our sea legs on with Schmanners, of like finding a balance between having that information at hand, but not being so rigidly adhered to it that you like pull back from a run you're on. Like, we would start making jokes and then have to like stop to remember where we were. So for us, it was a lot of like finding a balance between prepared and improv.
And another thing that I think is important, if you ever do a show in this similar format, if one person's sort of educating the other one, I don't look at Sydney's notes ahead of time. I never know what she's going to talk about. I mean, I have them there in front of me for like the ad copy that we have to read and stuff like that. But like, I don't read them because I want to be genuinely educated. What? No, yeah, I mean, I do. No, I'm saying broadly speaking, you're absolutely right. I do look from time to time to look smart sometimes. But like during the recording for sure, but like I don't let her tell me too much before we start recording an episode, if that makes sense. But yes, of course I do look just so I can look smart. But sometimes I don't, and it just sounds like I do because I just knew it, and every once in a while. But thank you, Grace. I picked less.
Okay. Yes. Come
on down. Ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum. No, I'm just trying to fill. Nobody likes dead air.
Oh man, what a podcast that would be.
Dead air?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Just sit here for 10 minutes and think about yourself. Live in the moment. Hello.
Hey.
So me and my fiance have been talking about doing a podcast for a long time. It's something that we don't plan on making a career out of.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of wondering, how long could it take for you guys when it stopped being a fun podcast and start being something that you could profit off of and make a living off of?
Well, it helped. I think what really where things started to change for us is when we joined the Maximum Fun Network. Did we ever have ads before that? No, we didn't. But when we joined a network that could help us with advertising and stuff like that, like I wouldn't even have known in a million years where to start with stuff like that. I would have no idea, and that certainly helped. I think that was probably the biggest turning point. That said, like I still work my day job. Like it's really hard, I think, to cobble together a living from just that, and it makes me very nervous.
It's very easy.
You'd be scraping. It took a long time, and it took a lot of doing a lot of different things. I think a big thing for us is like when we started doing like other podcasts and the graphic novel and the live shows and stuff like that. We really had to diversify to make it make sense as a career, but we're only lucky enough to do that because we have a lot of people listening, and I think that's the main thing is audience building.
Here's why. A career is not making money. That's part of it. But a career is knowing that thing is there. A career, because a job is making money. A career is like, this is supporting me. I can fall backwards, and that's there. And I think that, like, when did we start making money off the podcast? When we joined Max Fun. When did it feel like a career? When I was able to pay my bills and my rent and support my family without having to worry about it. That's when it became a career. So, like, it's kind of two different things of when did I start to feel comfortable enough to tell people it's what I did for a living? Maybe about a year ago.
My advice, and this is going to sound, I do not, to anybody, I think, and this is going to sound like I don't mean to be negative because I think you should do exactly what you want to do, exactly when you want to do it. But if you go into, my advice would be to not go into it with a goal of making that your job, because there are so few people for whom that is their full-time career. It's really hard. It's like lotto level, I think.
Even the people you see that are like top, 10 on iTunes, they do that and host a bunch of TV shows and REM movies and stand-up comedy. And
there's wonderful podcasts that enough people don't listen to.
Yeah.
And, like, there's great I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't listen to this? Like, it still blows my mind when I tell people, like, yeah, so I was listening to Oh Yeah Dude. And they're like, what? What's Oh Yeah Dude? I'm like, are you kidding me? It's, like, been around for 500 episodes. And those cats still have a lot of people who don't know about it. But it's really tough. I would say try to make yourself happy and provide value first, and just kind of hope that the career stuff will follow, because maybe it will.
Thank you.
Yep.
yes, of
Oh,
course.
sure. Thanks. Right here. Yes. Come on down. Saw you first. Thank you. Oh, thank you
great.
so much. Those are lovely.
I think that's me with the beard. Okay.
Have I been hearing that well the entire time? This is amazing. Okay. Great.
Oh, yeah, that's great. You can feel hey, you ever notice?
Can everybody hear okay, though? Are we good? Okay.
Great acoustics.
Hey, listen. You can hear us, and that's what you came for, right? Anyway.
All right, so what
Shut
is your
up.
question?
What's your name? Andy?
Hi, Andy.
I did not remember that to come out so forceful. Holy crap. I sounded like Batman. What's your name, Andy? Cool.
I like your fingernails.
Okay.
Your fingernails are great, Andy.
Can't hear Andy, Travis.
I know. I'm just trying to say I like Andy's fingernails.
Okay.
And you deleted it?
You deleted it instantly.
Nice.
Okay, good. On the right track. It's the Andy brand. The brandy. Perfect. Okay. Honestly, Andy, the number one thing that I could do, and it kind of makes me feel like a phony every day of my life, is have really funny brothers. Because we grew up like, and that's why picking a person I think is so important, because that relationship I think is the thing. Like the fact that you said that one of the people was not really carrying their weight, that is going to be 100% the only thing that is in your head the entire time you're recording, and you will not do a joke. You will think, come on, Doug.
That's the thing. We could sit here and tell you like, well, try, but at the end of the day, if it's enough that you notice it,
Yeah.
it's not going to work out.
Keep mixing it up and find the right people. We've had a lot of guests on our show at this point, and it's always weird because we're used to it being the three of us. But some of the people, they come on, it's like they've been on the entire time. Some of the people, it's like pulling teeth. And that's the thing, is just like you got to experiment with that stuff. Now that's hard when you're like trying to do a podcast, because then it's like, well, I thought we were doing a podcast, but Andy never called me again, so I guess we're not doing a podcast.
But here's the other thing, though. This is a very important thing. Imagine you're going to do 375 episodes.
Yeah, right.
Right, because that's the thing, is like you might find like, oh, I don't want to keep doing the show with this person, but I don't want to address that with them. Address it with them.
Yeah.
Because it's way better to do that now on episode 1 than like episode 600. Like, you know what? I've hated it this whole time.
If it sounds like we're having fun on our show, it's because like 95% of the time when I log on to do my brother me, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
I can't believe I get to do it. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what happens. Like I'm excited to do it, and I think that is the best advice I can give you. Is like, there's individual stuff you can do for your own sort of creativity and you know, improv and stuff. Most important of which is read. I think read as much as you can all the time. But find the right people that.
And then I think Teresa gave me the best advice anyone's ever given me, and it was before we did our Chicago live show. I called her and I was like, hey, I'm super nervous, and she was like, well, don't try to be funny, just make your brothers laugh, because that's what we do on the show. And that's it, because so in college I did study theater, and we did a lot of Stanislavski shit. And one of the things
that's what the name of his book was, right?
That's Stanislavski shit. And one of the things that I think is a very, very, very important, just kind of any entertainment rule, is be verbs are not good goals. So you don't want to be funny, right? Because then even if you achieve it, what do you do then? But to entertain, if you want to get something from somebody else, you want to make them laugh, you want to make them happy, you want to educate them, it's like Justin was saying, to add value, and that can be to your podcast co-host or to the audience, but have an actual goal of something you want from them, not inherently from yourself. That way you're working to get something from someone else, and that's always way more interesting than you just projecting your own stuff outward. Pull something towards you. That's way more interesting to watch. Because I also think watching someone try to be funny is the least funny thing you will ever say. One of my favorite stand-up is Cameron Esposito, and if you ever watch her perform, it is the most at-ease human being you will ever see, which is just her like pointing at someone in the audience going, what'd you do today? And then being funny about it. And it's like...
It's infuriating, by the way. It's like, talking to her in person is like, did you read that from a book of jokes? How did you just say that? That's a. Oh, that's all editing, Andy.
It's because we've been doing it for 30 plus years.
That's it. I mean, that's it. There's no great secret to it other than like have brothers that are funny, and then have a dad that forces you to be funny before you can have dinner.
Yeah.
And then you have to Malcolm Gladwell shit. Anyway, does that help, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah, and read again, guys. You gotta read.
Read.
Anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. How much? Sorry. One more. It's your pick. I picked Andy.
Pick.
What? Don't make me pick. Right here. No.
Because the Slytherin shirt.
Hello. Hey. I like that we're, by the way, still honoring the convention of the mic. We all know now that the mic is an illusion, but we have decided we are going to pretend this thing works. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that is good. That's true.
My question is like, so it takes a long time to get started. How do you get like an audience? My question is, how do you find a balance between, like telling people personally, like, hey, I have a podcast now where we listen to it, maybe going to your friends and people who you think will like it, but not wanting to just constantly bug them. I also don't want to like shout into the void of the internet because there's a million people on it and not so many people are going to pay attention. So where do you find what do you think is the best way to really get the word out and annoy the least amount of people?
I feel like the one thing I would say is hold off on doing that until you have something that you genuinely believe they would want to listen to. Like here, I think you, because a lot of times you make a first draft of something and you hand it off to some. I've done this. I do this all the time. You make a first draft of something and you're so excited that you actually have the thing done that you shove it into somebody's face. You're like, what do you think? It's bad. It's your first draft. Of course it's bad. Like the first draft of most things are not great. So like I think working on it until you have something that you are really proud of, because I think you're going to feel better about asking for that when you do have something that you feel really good about and you think that like you might actually enjoy this. I don't feel bad asking you because I feel really proud of what this is and think you'll get something out of it.
I also think that you have to make it easy for people to say yes to. So like what you don't want to do is tweet, hey, go to Google and type in this and then click through this and you'll find my podcast. You want to like hand them a link, be ready to go right there, easy for them to listen to. But I also think don't ever be afraid to shout into the void of the internet because literally everyone else is doing that all the time. It is what the void of the internet is for. And, you can't be afraid to self-promote because we've been doing this now for 8 years and there's still no better way than word of mouth. Yep. And until you build an audience to do word of mouth for you, you have to do the word of mouth yourself. And then at that point, I think, one, you have to love your audience. Just period, the end. Two, you have to respect your audience as a resource. Whether that's
a grueling, that would seem like contradictory ideas.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I love you, and also I'm going to mine you like I'm playing StarCraft.
That is that's exactly it. I know it is contradictory. That's why I'm saying it's really easy, I think, to do the first and forget the second, or do the second and forget the first. But if you don't ask your audience to share the show with people, who else is going to do it? And so I think that too often people forget their audience as a resource of like, I need you to tell people. I think it's so easy for I'd appreciate you sharing the show to sound like a knee-jerk kind of fake thing that everybody says at the end of the show. And it's really important to drive home to your audience because there's this thing that happens, this phenomenon that happens, and my friend Brent calls it being the mayor of your town, where like someone will listen to your show and love it, so they assume everyone else must already know about it too. And you have to tell them like, you know who I am, but most people don't. I need you to go out and tell them who I am. And so you have to ask, because if you don't ask, you're never going to get what you want.
We've been doing this for, like Travis said, 8 years. I don't know how to do. I don't know any way of growing something other than word of mouth. Nothing works. Take my word for it. Make a TV show. Still does not affect your download numbers. It's just word of mouth. It's the only thing. So you have to ask for that, and don't be afraid to, because I bet it's a good show. That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's
And
my
also,
snap judgment.
people actually love being the person who can tell people about something they haven't heard of. It's a fun thing to be able to say, like, well, have you heard about this? Oh, you'd love it. That's a great moment. And, like, you're giving them the chance to ground floor that
The
shit.
key is just making sure that you're already making something that you're proud of, and then they can be along for that with you. That's going to thank you very much, by the way. Please have a seat. Please, everybody applaud. It's weird if you don't applaud.
You're applauding Question Asker, not us.
Yeah, that's for them.
Hey, please clap for us.
First off,
No, don't. That was
No,
a joke.
stop.
No, please. Oh, God.
First off, on a more serious note, when I arrived, some very nice people said hi to me, but I was lost, and I felt kind of panicked, and I acted weird. So I kind of smiled and waved a little bit, but I looked probably like a weirdo who you'd scared. So I'm sorry that I acted weird. Sydney told me later that I acted weird. So I want to apologize for acting weird. We just didn't know where we were going, and I was a little bit lost, and the whole moment got to be a little bit much for me. But thank you very much. We're not going to be doing like a meet and greet after because we have our kiddos here, but we'll be probably walking around the floor. So if you see us, please feel free to say hi or whatever. But
I also want to say I really appreciate everybody showing up, and I hope that it helped in some way. The number one thing I would say is, like, at the end of the day, fuck it. Start your podcast. Just do it. You know what I mean? It's fun. It's a great hobby. It's something fun you can do with your friends. Don't scare yourself into thinking you're, not worthy of doing it or not good enough to do it.
The great thing about it is we've talked for an hour. If you don't want to do anything we said because you don't really care what happens with your podcast, you can walk around the door and be like, actually, fuck those guys. That's cool. I honestly, I would listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Justin McElroy, by the way.
Travis McElroy.
Thanks
Thank you very
for
much.
coming, guys.